Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be reflecting on the highs and the lows of my year in reading so far in 2023 with the mid-year Freak Out book tag. Stay tuned. It's been an interesting year for me so far. I've read 38 books, which is not where I really want to be, but I'm really hoping to make up for that in the second half of the year. I did go through a little bit of a reading slump in April and May, but yeah, I suppose I'm not too unhappy with where I am right now. I'm hoping by the end of the month to get to about maybe 43, 44 books and reach my goal of 100 books by the end of the year. Now, one thing I noticed about this tag is that the questions have seemed to change a bit over the years. I've looked at a couple of people this year and one or two questions are slightly different, but you know what, I'm happy with what I've got. So without further ado, let's go into it. Okay, question number one says, what is the best book you've read so far in 2022? And for me that was definitely The Terror by Dan Simmons. Now this book was absolutely terrifying and harrowing, and I got through it fairly quickly considering its size. It is based on a true story about the Franklin expedition, and really it was just a very dark, very horrifying read for me. But it took me a lot quicker than I thought it would, because once I got into it with those men marching across the ice, it went by very, very quickly. Very dark book. That is a terror. Question number two is, what is the best sequel you've read so far in 2023? Now, I haven't read many series or sequels. The only series that I've really got into so far is a crime series by Ed McBain, and that is the 87th Precinct, and I'm on book 6 by now. The covers look something like this, but yeah, I'm on book 6. I've told myself I'm going to try and read one per month, which hasn't worked out the last few months, but I will get back into that series as soon as I possibly can. I also would love to carry on with the Skullduggery series, which I just started the first book recently, which was a massive surprise, as well as The Rising. Both of these I'm going to be talking about soon as well. Question 3 says, what is the 2023 new release you haven't read yet but want to? Now, I haven't really been looking at most 2023 new releases, but one book that I see that comes up quite regularly on BookTube that looks really interesting, and that is Looking Glass Sound by Katrina Ward. It's just amazing cover and it sounds fascinating, and I know she also wrote Last House on Needless Street, which I've heard numerous times. So I would like to get hold of both of those books if necessary. But yeah, I haven't read a hell of a lot of 2023 new releases. A lot of the books I read are more current books that I own and looking more into the past, to vintage novels. But yeah, I'll give it a try and hopefully it'll be a great book. And similarly, question number 4 says, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? Now, as I've said, I haven't really been focusing on this year, but if any of you viewers have got some excellent recommendations of books that are coming out from July onwards, maybe I might find one on my Kindle, just let me know and I'll get stuck into it. But as I say, I'm more interested in the older, more vintage classic books. And I'm also starting to read a lot more indie horror as well. This month I've read a couple and I'm going to be talking about it on my next video. But yeah, I'm really getting into some indie authors as well. Question number 5 says, what is your biggest disappointment so far this year? Now, I've got to say, this is not because it's a bad book. but it's because I went into it with high expectations, and that was Nick Cutter, The Troop. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, which means that I liked it, but I was just expecting so much more. Everyone seemed to find it so terrifying and so horrifying. I just found the gore repetitive and so on. I have spoken about this already on my channel. Yeah, I just expected so much more from this novel. Now, I know that he's got another one called The Deep, and I'll definitely give that a read. But so far, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with The Troop. Question number 6 says, what is your biggest surprise for this year? Now, 2 of them stand out, but there's actually been quite a few. And for my reading for this month, which I'm going to be talking about on Thursday, there's been a couple of surprises for me there. But I've got to go with 2. A YA Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy and Necroscope by Brian Lumley. Now, for both of these novels, it really took me by surprise. I'd never heard of either author, and I know they're both part of a long series, so I'm really looking for the sequels. I'm hoping I can find them at some stage, because I want to carry on with both series. These were just absolutely 5-star reads for me. Yeah, I just thoroughly enjoyed them. And I didn't think that I would get into a YA novel as much as I did with Skullduggery Pleasant. It was just so exciting, so thrilling, and some of the best characters I've read about this year. Right, question number 7 says, who is your favourite new author? A debut author or just new to you? Now, besides the last 2 books I've just spoken about, there is one other author. There was one other recommendation that I read. This is his debut novel, and that's Mark Morris' Toady. And this was an absolutely awesome novel. I really gives away serious It vibes, and I didn't expect to be entertained as much as I was. Yeah, it's just a really good horror novel. And apparently Mark Morris has got some other excellent novels that I need to get my hands on at some stage. That is Mark Morris' Toady. Now everyone, I think in some of the other versions of this tag, one of these 2 questions is actually who's your fictional crush. I didn't get that in the questions that I found. My question is, who is your newest favourite character you met so far this year? Now, I'm going a little bit left field with this one, but I have to say, if I really think hard about it, Jane Slayer. And the reason I liked this character so much is that she was so true to the original classic Jane Eyre. Just feisty, passionate, very independent, and really quite a kick-ass character, going around slaying zombies and vampires. It was just a lot of fun, this book. I've never read a mishmash monster sort of classic before, and I think I'm going to keep my eye out for, what's it, Pride and Prejudice and zombies, but this was a lot of fun, and I'd highly recommend it. Even if you have read Jane Eyre and you're worried that it's going to mess up the classic, you just go into it with an open mind. It's a lot of fun, and the character herself is awesome. Okay, question number 9 is, what is a book that made you cry so far this year? Okay, this book more made me cry inside. It was just so heartbreaking, heart-wrenching, soul-destroying, and that is, we need to talk about Kevin. Now, I found this a very depressing, uncomfortable read. It was a very good read, but just the bleak subject matter in itself and the way the story unfolds, we actually know what happens about the school shooting, but we get the way that you get there and the way that this family are. It is just very sad and depressing, and as I say, it's a very difficult read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm glad I made my way through it, but it was difficult. And that's, we need to talk about Kevin. Okay, and on the flip side of the coin, question number 10, or prompt number 10, is, what is a book that made you happy so far this year? Now, this one really stands out for me, Joyland by Stephen King. It's just a warm coming-of-age story. Yeah, it's a murder mystery, and there's other stuff going on in this carnival, this funfair, whatever. But I really enjoyed this. The characters, their growth, just the way that their friendships develop while they're working in this carnival. This was a special book to me. I didn't think that I would enjoy it as much as I did. But like I say, it's a coming of age story more than anything else. It's definitely not a horror, typical of Stephen King. But if you have not read this, give it a try. This was a 5-star for me. Prompt number 11 is, what is the most beautiful book you've bought or acquired so far this year? Now, these books are not beautiful in the traditional sense. Being a horror lover, a lot of the books that I bought that are 70s vintage classic paperbacks that I showed off in 2 of my videos this year, those are beautiful for me. Just a couple of examples: The Shrinking Man, which I'm reading this month. Another one that I really enjoyed was Sean Hudson's Slugs. Definitely not beautiful, but freaking amazing. And then we got another amazing cover, Locust. Of course, there are a lot of others if you go back to my vintage videos, my vintage book hauls, but for me those are beautiful covers. Okay, and the penultimate question or prompt is prompt number 12, and that is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? Now, I've got a lot of books on my TBR, but if I just take a handful that I maybe want to prioritize before the end of the year, that is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor LaValle. I'd love to see how Lovecraftian that story is. I've heard really good things about it. Another one is City of the Dead by Brian Keane. That's because I loved The Rising so much and I'm dying to get hold of the sequel. And then we have The Drive-In by Joe R. Lansdale. That's another book that's actually on my Kindle, so I'm going to read that quite soon. I love Joe R. Lansdale, and this is one of his true horror offerings, and it just sounds awesome. This massive driveway that gets shut off from the rest of the world, food running out and so on. You can imagine it gets pretty dark. And then number 4, Fairy Tale by Stephen King, his latest offering. I think it's his latest offering. I'm not getting it just yet. I'm going to read some of the other ones I haven't finished yet, but I would love to get that by the end of the year. And then finally, Broken Monsters by Lauren Beukes. Now, the reason that I want to read this book is because this is an Afrikaans author, and she is South African, and I'm determined to try and read a little bit more South African literature this year as well. She's a thriller writer, bestseller, and I think she also wrote I think it's The Shining Girls. So I mean, either or, I'd like to get to her stuff as soon as I possibly can. But that's just a handful from our whole TBR. We'll just have to see what the rest of the year has in store for us. Okay, and the final one is an interesting one. Question number 13 says, what is your favorite video or post you've done so far this year? Now, this is not my most popular video. There's a couple of videos that are actually more popular, but I'm very proud of my favorite horror authors of all time and the authors that have affected me as a reader. And I think one of the reasons that's my favorite is because I worked quite hard on that video. I did a lot of research on the authors themselves and found interesting tidbits with each author, and I was really proud at the end product that I created with that particular video. And I will be linking that video up shortly up at the top there. So if you want to jump to that and see what that's all about, that'd be great. Okay everyone, so that's my reflection on the first half of 2023, up to June now, done and dusted. I hope you enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments below what you think about my responses, and if you like this content, please like and subscribe, and keep those pages turning. Take care, see you next time, bye bye.